Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I want to welcome those of you that are watching on my YouTube channel. Thank you for being a part. Thank you for supporting. Thank you for watching and subscribing. Most importantly, thank you for commenting and sharing. For those of you that are watching on my podcast, Fundable by Design, I want to have a conversation with you about how do you design your organizations to receive the funding that is needed. The question about where's the money, right? The question about, Jen, how do I get funding? Jen, the question about funding is my biggest issue. Or, Jen, I'm funding everything out of my own pocket. I want to share with you how your organization is fundable by design, that your organization is intended, should be structured and designed to generate the revenue, long term revenue, 2 to 3 to 4 years for your organization. Today, I want to talk about a 12-month roadmap to turning passion for a project into a fundable nonprofit. Okay. How do you turn passion for a project into a fundable nonprofit? Almost like thinking about it this way: how do you turn your heart work, the work that you want to do to help, to support, to serve your community, into an infrastructure that is going to be able to sustain the work? Okay. This is something that I want you to think about. That if you started your nonprofit organization because you saw a need, right? You saw a need. You saw a need for a mentoring program. You saw a need for a ministry. You saw a need for helping the veterans. You saw a need for helping the homeless, right? You saw a need. And so you decided to start your nonprofit because you saw a need. But now you may be asking, where's the funding? You may be thinking to yourself, why are grants so hard to get? You may be in a place where you're frustrated because you may be saying, why does everything depend on me? Why am I doing everything? This is going to be a conversation for you to reset, okay? Because the difference between a passion project and a nonprofit that a donor, a funder, a supporter, a contributor would want to invest in is not hard work. I'm going to say that again. The difference between a passion project, those of you that started your nonprofit because you're passionate, those of you that started your nonprofit because you want to help people, right? Because it's your burden, because it's your calling, that passion project. And the difference between that and a nonprofit that attracts the donor, the individual, the sponsor, is not the heart. Did you hear what I said? The difference between funding a project, a program, and attracting a donor, a funder, a supporter is not the heart. It's structure. It's structure. And structure can be built, right? Structure can be built and should be built deliberately. So today I want to walk you through a realistic roadmap to building a deliberate structure to raise money for your nonprofit organization. There is a distinction between those organizations that have funding, that have enough money for their salaries, for their materials, for their supplies, for their space, for their infrastructure, right? And those that don't. Those that are supported by the founder, the person that started the nonprofit. You may be that person where you're funding everything. You're paying for everything out of your pocket. You are the organization's ATM. The organization itself is not raising money. It's not bringing in enough money to support itself. And so I want to walk you through a realistic roadmap, a sequence of how organizations put together the sequence to raise money. All right. And it's not starting with the program. All right. We're not talking about overnight success. We're not talking about chasing grants. And we're definitely not talking about hype. We are talking about what is the sequence to raising money for your nonprofit organization. Now, let me say this. If you are new to me, my name is Jennifer. I am a nonprofit expert over 39 years. May is going to be 40 years of doing this work. I am a professional fundraiser. I am a grant writer. I am a nonprofit strategist. Okay. I'm a hidden figure, if you know what I'm saying, right? My job has been to raise hundreds of millions of dollars for nonprofit organizations. None of them were mine. But all of these organizations needed the revenue coming into the organization to cover their predictable expenses. What are the predictable expenses? You have organizational expenses. You have the phone, you have the internet, you have the website, you have your CRM, you have staff, you have space. You have financial responsibilities. You have fundraising, the marketing. These are predictable expenses. So there is a sequence by which you build your plan, your strategy, your process of generating the revenue to cover those predictable expenses, right? So you've got predictable expenses and you then have predictable revenue. The first thing that you want to think about is your foundation. When you start your nonprofit organization, you are starting an organization. You are not starting a program, right? So the sequence to building an organization, a nonprofit organization that is structured, that is positioned to raise money, begins with your foundation, right? What is the foundation? What is it that you must have in place in order to attract, motivate, and inspire, to build a budget, to be able to define how much things cost and where money comes from? That's at the foundation of your work, right? The foundation of your work. So, what does that begin with? That begins with a mission that's clear and specific, not vague. That begins with a vision of what it is that you're going to accomplish. Why is the vision important? Because the vision is what is communicated, the vision is what is shared, the vision is what keeps you centered. All right? That you know what the need is. You know how to address the need. You know what's going to take to address the need. You are clear about the purpose of the organization. Not just, I want to do work. I want to help people. I want to make a difference. You know, on one day I'm giving out backpacks. The next day I'm giving out P&J sandwiches. The day after that I'm tutoring people. The day after that I'm helping people get hotels. You're doing a lot of things. And none of those things are clear and specific, right? So when you are putting together your organization in order to predict expenses, you've got to know what are going to be the things that you are going to do. What is the time? How much is it going to cost? How many do you need by the week, by the month, by the year? That's how you build a budget, right? So, really setting the foundation of your organization has to be number one. Now, for many of you, you did the paperwork. You started with the paperwork and then you started executing the program. You went out of order. You went out of order. You went out of order. You went straight from Jen, this is my paperwork, to expense. I'm going to say that again. You went straight from Jen, I got my 501c3. Here's our expense. We started our program. Our program is feeding the youth. Our program is helping the homeless. Our program is our ministry. Our program is, whatever it is that you're doing. That's an expense. So you went from paperwork to expense. But what you skipped was, how much money am I going to need to bring in to cover that expense on a regular basis, on a monthly basis, on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on an annual basis? Those are the specifics that you've got to know at the beginning. Many of you get your paperwork, get your 501c3, start doing the program. Now you have an expense, a regular, predictable expense, and you skipped How much money do we need to bring in? Where does money come from? Do we have a plan or a strategy to bring in the money? You skipped all of that. All right. So now you don't have the organizational boundaries, understanding, clarity needed for the funders to invest in. You try to do everything. Jen, we want to help the homeless. Jen, we want to help youth. Jen, we want to serve the community. Jen, we want to make a difference. But that's not what the donors, the funders, the supporters, the contributors, that's not what they give money to. They're not giving money to your passion. They're investing in clarity. Put clarity in the chat. They're investing in clarity. Clarity saying, how much money do you need? Where else does money come from? What is your budget? They invest in the organization's ability to clearly articulate this is what we do, this is why we do it, this is the benefit and the need for what we do, this is how we meet that need, and this is how much it's going to cost. This is the cost per person. That clarity gives them the confidence that you know how to what? Manage and steward their money. Donors and funders, supporters and contributors, sponsors and partners are investing in your clarity. If you are not clear, they are not clear that you know what to do with their money. If you're not clear of how much things are going to cost, what your plan is, what your process of generating revenue, how do you equate expenses? If you're not clear about how you're going to complete your work, then how are they supposed to trust you to be clear about how you're going to spend their money? It doesn't make sense. And so now you started your nonprofit. Now you've gotten your 501c3 out of order. And now you're stuck. Jen, I started my nonprofit, but we don't have any funding. Jen, I started my nonprofit and funding is our biggest issue. Jen, I started my nonprofit and I'm paying for everything out of my own pocket. Jen, I started my nonprofit, but we don't have enough money for this or that. And that's how you started? You got to know what are the expectations set for the organization, for the program, financially. You are starting an organization. You are the CEO of an organization. You have a business bank account. This is not a game of guess. This is a game of clarity. This is a business of specifics, not, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. I don't know. I just know, Jen, we want to make a difference. How we make a difference, I don't know. How much is it going to cost to make a difference? I don't know. I don't know how to find board members, Jen. Now, if you don't know how to find board members, or the board members that you have are not engaged, the question then is, do you then know the roles and responsibilities of the board? Do you know the role and the responsibility that you, as the founder, as the CEO, has with the board? Because if you don't know how to find board members, you don't know how to instruct, how to engage, how to motivate, how to prepare, how to equip the board to be able to support the work that you're doing, then there has to be something around expectations then of how do you manage the board? How does the board work within the organization? Are they meeting? Y'all, this is the groundwork. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. Jen, we don't have any donors. Jen, we don't have any funding. Jen, I don't know how to find board members. Jen, I have board members, but they're not engaged. I'm like, how did we get here? How did we get to the place where you have board members, but you don't have what it takes to equip, to prepare, to position, to help the board understand their role and responsibility? You are the CEO. If you don't know how to lead the organization as the founder, as the CEO, then how is the donor, the supporter, the contributor, the sponsor supposed to trust you with their money? Can I make it any plainer? Can I make it any plainer? This is sequence. Number two is financial visibility, right? You are an organization that has been given permission to generate revenue. That's what your 501c3 is. Your 501c3 is permission to generate revenue. Your 501c3 says, the paperwork says that you have a long-term financial plan, that you are able to project 2 to 3 years ahead of how much money you need to bring in. That has nothing to do with your program. It has everything to do with your organization's ability, clarity, capacity to bring in money. That means you have an operating budget. That means you have revenue projections. You have an idea of where money comes from and how much money you need every week, every month, every year. You have daily expenses, then you've got to have daily cash flow. But if you're sitting back saying, Jen, we don't have any money. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, we don't have enough money to operate. Jen, I can't find donors. Jen, funding is my biggest issue. That means you skipped a step. That means you skipped a step when you started your nonprofit, because the paperwork says that you have the vision, that you know how to project revenue. That's what the paperwork says. That 1023 form, that's what it says. It says that you know how to track expenses. It says that you know how to have basic financial controls. That's what the paperwork says. But many of you skipped that step. You went from, I filled out my paperwork, Jen. I got my 501c3, and now I've done my program, and now I don't have any money. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, I'm doing everything by myself. Jen, and we don't have any money coming. Jen, we don't have any donors. But that's not what the paperwork says. That means you started an organization with no financial responsibility or capacity. And this is where panic sets in, right? Now you're panicking because you're guessing. You're guessing everything. I don't know where money comes from. I don't know how to raise money. Funding is my biggest challenge. I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. That's because you started out of order. That's because you started your nonprofit skipping that step of how much is it going to cost? Where does money come from? How are we tracking expenses? Now you're guessing. When you follow the sequence, you stop guessing and you start knowing. And when funders, your donors, your supporters, your contributors, your sponsors, when they understand that you know how to manage finances, when they know that you have financial clarity, they then can trust you with their money. If you don't have financial clarity, you don't know how much anything costs, you don't have a projection of revenue or expenses, you're constantly in financial crisis, no money, no money, no money, we need money. We don't have any donors, Jen. Funding is my biggest issue. Then why would the donors, the funders, the supporters, the contributors, those capital issuing authorities, why would they trust you with their money? Why would they trust you with their money? Why would they give you the grant? When you've shown that you don't know how to manage money, you don't have a plan for money, you don't know how to sustain your organization. Not that you can't, it's just that you skipped that step. You skipped that step. You went straight from, I filed my paperwork, and now I started spending money on this program. I started doing the work of the program, Jen. I started with the space. I started getting equipment. I started with the materials. I started with the supplies. I started spending money on the program. I didn't set up how to raise any money, though. I didn't even indicate how much money we need on a regular basis. I didn't do any of that. I skipped that. I skipped that part of the process. I thought I could do it later, right? Well, Jen, I thought that if once I started my program, I could fundraise later. I could put a budget together later. I could get sponsors later. I could learn how to do that later. So now you've built a team of board members who can't help you because you don't know how. Now they don't know how. Now no one knows how. And later is 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months later, no money. 1 year, 2 year, 3 years later, no money. Because you skip those steps, right? Then you've got to have system development, right? System development says that you have created systems, program documentation, policies, procedures, outcome tracking, data collection, donor tracking, donor cultivation, donor acquisition, multiple streams of revenue. You've created systems within the organization to generate and respond to the requirements of the donor, the funder, the supporter, the contributor. If you skip that step, no, Jen, we don't have a tracking. No, Jen, we don't have a budget. No, Jen, we're not measuring outcome. No, Jen, we don't have donors. Jen, I have my CRM, but I don't know how to use it. Yeah, Jen, I have my social media, but it's not up to date. I have a program, I have a website, Jen, but it's not really accurate. So that means the systems, the tools that you have that are used to raise money are not working, are not in place. That means you're doing everything by yourself, right? So if anything happens to you, the organization comes to a halt because you don't have the systems to work without you, to be able to delegate to others. You skip that step, and now you're fragile. That when the donor, the funder, the capital issuing authority, the grant funder says, so tell me about your program. Tell me about your program outcome. Tell me about your impact. Tell me how you evaluate your program. Tell me how much does it cost for the program? What's the cost per person? Tell me where the money is going to come from after these grant dollars have been spent. All of that is in the grant application. And if you did not put those things in place to report, to detail, to clarify, the donor, the funder, the supporter, the contributor, they think you're fragile. Fragile. They don't view your organization as sound. They look at you as a financial risk because you're too dependent on you and your money. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. No, Jen, the organization doesn't have any money. Jen, we don't have any donors. Jen, funding is our biggest challenge. I'm paying for everything out of my pocket, Jen. Everything out of my pocket. Nope, we don't have any donors. We don't have any funders. We don't have any supporters. You're fragile because you skipped the step of putting together the systems that develop the money. Did you know that there were systems to develop money? You skipped that step. Now you're running around here talking about, I need a grant. I need a grant. I need a grant. Can I tell you the truth? Can you handle the truth? The truth is this. The truth is this. A grant is not guaranteed money. Not everybody's going to get that grant. The grant funder may receive 1,000 applications. They're only going to fund maybe 20. How do they determine who's going to get the funding? They're looking for the organizations that are not fragile, that are not financially weak. That's how they determine it. Every proposal has a program. Every proposal comes from a nonprofit. Every proposal is going to meet a need. It's going to be some kind of need for or helpful, right? So every proposal is going to cover those bases. So it's not the program that's considered. It's not you being a nonprofit that's because everybody's proposal is going to come from a nonprofit, right? Everybody's going to be on the same level playing field. But it's going to be those organizations that have the systems, the strategies, the structures to support themselves after those grant dollars have been spent. And even while you're waiting for the grant, you have money coming in. As you're spending the grant dollars, you have money coming in. What am I saying? You're not dependent on a grant. You have the other 14 streams of revenue coming in. You're not waiting on a grant. If your organization cannot move until you get a grant, you are weak and fragile in the eyes of the donor. Because they're going to say, well, I don't want to be your only source of revenue. And when our grant dollars are gone, where's money going to come from? You're going to be back to being the only supporter of the organization. Well, if your organization is so wonderful, how come your community is not supporting it? Are you hearing what I'm saying? I want you to put yourself in their shoes. All right? These are the steps that many of you are skipping. Then you skipped the fundraising framework because you think it's work. I don't like fundraising, Jen. I don't like talking to people. Jen, I feel like I'm begging. Jen, I don't know what to say. Jen, I don't know where to begin. Jen, I don't know how. So now you're waiting on a grant. But the grant funder is going to ask you, where else does money come from? The grant funder is going to want to know, where else are you getting funding? They're going to want to see your budget. A budget is not just your expenses. A budget also is, where does money come from to cover the expenses? So did you establish the individual donor path, the monthly giving, the relationship cultivation, the communications calendar? Did you create a system or a message or a case for support to introduce what you do? Because a donor is not a stranger. A funder is not a stranger. People who give money to your organizations are not strangers. The more people that know what you do, the more people then that can give what you do. Let me put it this way. The more people that can trust you with their money. That's how we raise more money. We're not begging. But if you did not put together a fundraising framework, then you are paying for everything out of your pocket. But when you put that fundraising framework together, that means, Jen, we've got 15 streams of revenue, or we at least have the minimum of 8. You have 8. Everybody has 8 streams of revenue. There are 15. Okay? Not including crowdfunding. Everybody has 8 streams of revenue. If you are the only contributor, you are proving that your organization relies on one source. That's you. No, Jen, we don't have a plan for long-term sustainability. No, Jen, we don't have revenue coming into the organization to keep the doors open. No, Jen, we're not able to scale our program. No, Jen, we're not able to hire help. that means you are a risk. You are a financial risk because you skipped that step. Now, for many of you, you didn't know that that was a step that you needed. For many of you who've never worked in a nonprofit, you've never run a nonprofit, you've never started a nonprofit, you've never raised funds for a nonprofit, you didn't even know. I'm telling you why you're stuck. Because you skipped steps. You went straight from I got my paperwork, Jen. I started my nonprofit, Jen. I got my 501c3. And the 501c3 does not say you started a nonprofit. It says you applied for permission to raise money that's exempt of taxes. That's what you did. You did not start a nonprofit. You did not establish a nonprofit. No, you asked for permission through that application to raise money that's exempt of taxes. The 501c3 is a revenue code. It is a code that says your organization can bring in money under this exemption code. That's what the paperwork says. The paperwork did not say you structured your nonprofit. And because you thought that that 501c3 meant I started a nonprofit, that means you did not set up the nonprofit. You didn't set up the organization. You just filled out a piece of paper that asked for permission to generate money under a revenue code. That's all you did. Which is why now you're paying for everything out of your pocket, which is why now you are stuck, which is why now funding is your biggest challenge. You did not start a nonprofit. You fill out an application to generate revenue under an exemption code. That's all you did. Am I making sense? So now you've gone out of order. You did not put into the nonprofit sequence of how do we raise money? Where does money come from? I didn't put that in order. I didn't put that in place. So now you don't have accountability. No reporting. I didn't know I needed that, Jen. So now you don't have financials, you don't have impact statements, you don't have financial summaries, you don't have a case for support, you don't have any of the things needed for the donor, the funder, the supporter, the contributor, the sponsor, what they need to make a decision about giving you the money. You started the program because you thought, I just want to help people, Jen. I just want to do good. I just want to make a difference. And you thought that by having your 501c3, that would attract a donor, that they would give you money because you filled out paperwork to operate under a code of 501c3. I got my 501c3, Jen. I need a grant. Jen, I got my 501c3. I need funding. Jen, I got my 501c3. I need donors. That 501c3 is a code. It's just a revenue code. That's all it is. That code expects you to have long-term financial planning. That revenue code expects you to have long-term 3 to 4 years of revenue projection. And if you did not know that, then I know you didn't set up the organization to raise money. I know you didn't. That's why you're paying for everything out of your pocket. You're running on emotion and not evidence. Evidence that you know how to financially bear the weight of running, of operating this organization. And because you skipped the steps, you didn't know, not your fault. You didn't know. Who's going to tell you? You got your piece of paper, you got a 501c3, and now you started your program. And by and through starting your program, you put a financial strain on the organization. Why? because the program is nothing but an expense. Now I got my 501c3. I started my program. Jen, we're feeding the homeless. Jen, we're helping single moms. Jen, we want a transitional house. Jen, we're handing out backpacks. Jen, we're mentoring youth, all of which cost money. So now you got your 501c3, you start doing your program, but you skip the steps to bear under the strain of that program, financial strain. That program costs money. You need materials, you need supplies, you need space, you need somebody to run the program. You got gas, you got snacks, you got equipment. All of that you want to do from your emotion of, I want to help, Jen. I want to make a difference, Jen. I want to give back. It costs money. Listen, the story of why you started your nonprofit may inspire some, right? That may inspire some. But your donors, your funders, your contributors, those capital issuing authorities, they're not inspired by your story. They want proof. They want data. They want to be sure that your organization is not a financial risk. Can I say it any plainer? Sometimes you got to hear it straight. Can I say it any plainer? You don't have a money problem. You have a sequence problem. You don't have a money problem. You have a sequence problem. That, Jen, we did not set our nonprofit up to raise money. We did not set our nonprofit up to give the donor, the funder, the supporter, the contributor what they need before they make a decision to give to an organization. We didn't take that into consideration. We just thought all we need to do was fill out this paperwork, get my 501c3, and I could get a grant. Because somebody said, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. So you ran out there, got your piece of paper, got your paperwork file, and thought that paperwork says that you are started, that you have set it up, that the paperwork says I'm set up as a nonprofit. And that's not what it says. That's not what it says. That paperwork is an application asking for permission to raise money. It does not say you set up a nonprofit. And because you did not set up the nonprofit, but you fill out the application and you started doing the program, which is only an expense, now you're struggling with money. We don't have any funding, Jen. Jen, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. Jen, we don't have any donors. Jen, I need a grant. Jen, I don't have any money. And then you realize that grant is not that easy to get. I've been trying to get a grant, Jen, for 1 year, 2 year, 3 years more. Jen, we got some of the small grants, but then after that money was gone, we didn't have any other money coming in, so I had to pay for everything out of my pocket. Jen, we had to stop because funding is our biggest issue, and we didn't have enough money coming in to keep going. What does that mean? That means you did not set up the organization for long-term raising of funds, generating revenue. And that's what the paperwork says. The paperwork says that you are prepared to generate revenue for the next 3 to 4 years. That's what the paperwork says. The paperwork does not say you started a nonprofit or you set up a nonprofit. And that's why many of you are struggling right now. You're trying to invest in a grant writer. Jen, I need a grant. I need a grant writer, Jen. Jen, I need a grant for my program. Jen, can I get a grant? Jen, do you write grants? Let me tell you the truth. Can you handle the truth? I am a grant writer. I am a fundraiser. I am a nonprofit expert. If you have not done any of the things that I previously mentioned, if you've not laid out a financials, if you don't have money coming in from other places, if you don't have a plan or a strategy for long-term revenue generating, you're not going to get the grant. So hiring a grant writer is not your solution, because the grant application is going to ask you, how do you manage money? What is your budget? What are your financials? What do you report on your 990? Are you doing the 990 postcard that says we don't have any money? We didn't bring in any money. We're deficient in money. I'm paying for everything out of my pocket. That says to the grant funder, you don't know how to manage money. That your organization is not safe for money. That's what you're saying. Now, I know that's not what you think you're saying. You may be thinking, well, Jen, I just did the postcard. I did the postcard, Jen, for the last 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, 4 years more. I just did the postcard, Jen. And what's the postcard say? The postcard says, no, we don't have any money. No, we're not raising any money. No, we don't know how to bring in any money. No, I'm paying for everything out of my pocket, Jen. We didn't make any money. So what does that say to the grant funder? You don't know how to manage money. You don't have a plan to sustain this thing. To keep it simple, what you've just said is that our organization is not set up or structured to be sustainable. We are a financial risk. You give us the money, we're going to spend the money, and no, we don't have any more money coming in. That's what you're saying. I'm paying for everything out of my pocket, and we don't have a plan or a strategy for that to change. Before these dollars come in and after these dollars have been spent, we're going to be broke again. That's what you're saying. So a grant is not going to help you. I'm telling you. But now you want a grant because somebody said, start a nonprofit, you can get a grant. But the grant funder wants to know, how do you manage money? How do you manage money? Who provides financial oversight? How do you manage impact? What happens when our grant funds end? That's all in the grant application. The grant funder is not saying, hey, what do you need money for? You're a nonprofit? I'm going to give you some money because you're a nonprofit. That's not what it says. They want to make sure that you started, that you have an organization that is financially sound. If you're not financially sound, why would they give you money? Can somebody help me with that? Why would they give you money and you don't know how to manage money? You don't even have a budget for money. You're paying for everything out of your own pocket. The organization is not even able to sustain itself. Now, this is how I say it, okay? I don't want nobody to get no attitude. I don't want nobody to feel no kind of way, all right? I'm just being direct. Do y'all mind me being direct? Can I tell you the truth for free? That before you are considered for the grant funds, you've got to have a plan, a structure, a way, a means of communicating to the grant funder, those capital issuing authorities, that you can be trusted with money. This is not about your passion. It's about your being prepared. How about that? This is not about your passion. This is about you being prepared, financially prepared. Let me say this. I've just laid out for you the roadmap that fixes your money problem. I've just laid it out. And when followed, when you follow it, where's the money question turns into strategic planning, long-term planning. That when you now have a plan of how to raise money, when you know what it is that attracts the donor and the funder. When you're clear about how much it costs and where does money come from to cover those expenses, now burnout decreases. Many of you right now are burnt out. You're frustrated. You're afraid. You're broke because you're paying for everything out of your pocket. When you are strategic, intentional, when you have the right systems in the right order, your board is engaged. They know what to do. They know when to do it. They know how to do it. Your donors stay longer. And now the conversations about money is less intimidating because you shifted from passion to planning. I can't tell y'all how many people say to me, Jen, I started my nonprofit with no plan, no strategy, no knowledge, no experience. I had no plan, Jen, on how to sustain this work long term. I didn't even think long term. I just thought about starting my program, Jen. I didn't even think about long-term sustainability. I didn't think about how much money was going to be needed weekly, monthly, annually. I didn't think about that. I just started doing the work. And I thought that once I started my nonprofit, I could get a grant. I just thought that once I started my nonprofit, funding would come. From where? I didn't think about from where. What would I need to get the funding? It never occurred to me, Jen. It never occurred to me. I just started paying for everything out of my pocket. And now you're facing funding is my biggest challenge. And I'm telling you why. Funding is by design. It's a design. It's a predictable design. You have predictable expenses. Then you also have predictable ways by which money comes in to cover those expenses. Otherwise, why would you start out with expenses with no way to cover those expenses? No, it's by design. It's not about your intensity. It's not about your passion. It's not about what you want to do. It's not about what happened to you. It's about the sequence. It's about the structure. It's about what you put in place. Many of you are struggling right now because of what's not in place. No, Jen, we don't have a fundraising strategy. No, Jen, we don't have a budget. No, Jen, we don't have financials. No, Jen, I don't know how to raise money. No, Jen, I don't know how to train my board to help us raise money. It's what's missing that's got you stuck. You didn't put it in place. Not your fault. But when you put it in place, now funding is possible. Now you have the things in place, the structure in place, the systems in place, the tools in place that are designed to bring in money for the organization. You are struggling because you don't have those things in order. You don't have them. And it's not because you don't want to. It's just you didn't know to. Am I right or no? Jen, I started my nonprofit. I didn't know. I started my nonprofit, Jen. No, I didn't know I needed that. I didn't know to put that in place. Well, that's obvious because it's not there. And that's why you're struggling. Money is not your issue. You don't have a design to raise money. Your organization is not designed to raise money. But that's not what the paperwork says. The paperwork says you are designed to bring in money for the next 3 to 4 years. That's what the paperwork says. All right, listen, I hope that this has been helpful. I hope that I have been clear. I wanted to just come in and give you some truth that you have to put some things in place. And those of you that are skipping that or prolonging putting those things in place, then expect that the longer these things are not in place, I want you to be clear that the longer these elements are not in place, is the longer it's going to take you to generate the revenue needed to keep the doors open. Okay? This is very cut and dry. There's no gray. This is not any type of, you know, theory. This is practical, structural setup situation. That if you are not set up or designed to raise money, if you don't have a plan to raise money, if you don't know how to raise money, there is no money. And if you thought that grants or fundraising was going to come as a result of you having your paperwork filed, I just want to bring some clarity to that assumption. That's not true. That's not true. Because the grant funder, those capital issuing authorities, are going to expect that you have other money coming in as well, that they're not your only funding source. All right? Listen, my name is Jennifer. I am your nonprofit expert. This year, May, just a few short months, 40 years of doing this work. I am a fundraiser. I am a grant writer. I am a nonprofit expert. I am a master strategist in helping organizations put together plans and strategies, systems and tools so that your organization is designed to raise money. The question of where's the money? How do I get the grants? Funding is my biggest challenge. My board can't help me raise money. I'm paying for everything out of your pocket. All of that is because you did not design or structure your organization to bring in money. You did not design, structure, put in place the things that the donors, the funders, the supporters, the contributors, what they need to see before they feel confident to give you their money. They're not giving you money because you filed a piece of paper. And that piece of paper does not say you started a nonprofit. That's not what the paper says. And if you made that assumption, that's why you're stuck. Now, if you want to get unstuck, if you want to say, Jen, I need my organization to be designed. I need to understand where the 8 to 15 streams of revenue come from. Jen, I need to understand what it is that the donors, the funders, the supporters, the contributors, those capital issuing authorities, I need to understand what it is that we need to give to them so that they would be attracted to give to money to us. Fundraising is trust. Fundraising is about trust. It's not about the piece of paper. If it were about the piece of paper, everybody that has a piece of paper would have money, right? If all you needed was 501c3 to get funding, then everybody would have the funding. It's not about the 501c3. It's about, can they trust your organization with their money? They want to see your design for sustainability. Fundable by design. Okay? Listen, there's lots of ways to get this done and done quickly. I have a guide that walks you through what you need to have in place to raise money. All right? You have the guide and it comes with a 2-hour video. I can put that in your hands immediately. The other option is, Jen, I want you and your team to design our organization's fundraising system. I want you to put it in place. I want you to help us to run it. We can have your design, your fundraising organizational design in place in less than 30 days. You could be raising money or on your path to raising money within 45 days. Okay? We'll design it all. We'll even help you execute it, oversee executing it. Okay? So you have a choice. You can do it by yourself. I have the guide that walks you through step by step. It comes with a 2-hour video that explains the process. Or you can say, Jen, I want to work with you and your team. I want you all to mentor us to ensure that we do it right. But let me say this, not doing it or postponing doing it is going to make your organization weaker financially. All right. I also have a training in May. I have a 3-day training in May 6th, 7th, and 8th in Houston, Texas, where my team and I will be helping you put your plan together live. It's going to be a small, intimate group. We're not going to have more than 6 or 7. So if you would like to be a part of that process where myself and my team will be helping you put your plan and strategy together in person, May 6th, 7th, and 8th, those 3 days is where we'll do it together. Okay. So you've got choices. You have got options. You can do it on your own. You can do it with us, May 6th, 7th, and 8th, or my team and I can do it for you. Okay. Whatever works best for you. But you want to move quickly. Every day that you're not designed, every day that you don't have a plan or a strategy to raise money is every day you are weaker to the donor and the funder. Okay. I want to say thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for those of you that have commented. Thank you for those of you that have shared and liked. If you would like to work with me, there's a link in my bio, in the comments, in the description area that'll give you information on how to work with myself and my team. My goal is to help your organization design your plan and your strategy to raise money. You are designed to raise money. All right? You've been given permission to. So let's do it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. I'll see you all next time. Bye.